Okay, we're live.
Yeah, hey, it's Greg Harrelson here again with Century 21, the Harrelson Group, and my partner Abe Safa, of course, also with Century 21, the Harrelson Group, and he and I have been, sharing with you for multiple weeks now on Myrtle Beach Real Estate TV, and sharing with you what's going on in the real estate market, trying to help you, stay current with the market. And one of the things that Abe and I, can talk about is we know the numbers, we see the fads, we see the trends. And we see the swings, and I think we'll talk about all those things, today. So, Abe, thank you again for, co-hosting Myrtle Beach Real Estate TV. Let's just do a little deep dive and go right into it. So, what are some of the things that you're noticing right now about the market?
Hey, Greg. Yeah, so I mean, one of the most important things that I'm seeing is a slowdown in the activity as far as number of showings.
Yes.
So we saw a little bit of a slowdown last week. It was something you and I pointed out in the last episode, and thought it was something definitely to keep on the radar and pay attention to and see what would happen this week. And we're seeing the same trend right now. So definitely showings have slowed down.
Yes.
And there's a couple of different reasons, in my opinion, and I'm sure you're going to agree with all of them, if not most of them. So obviously, since last week, since our last episode, the city as well as the county has made it mandatory to wear masks in public.
Yes.
So that's one of the first things. Second thing is there's more and more talk, especially on the internet right now, on news channels, national news channels, talking about the spike in COVID cases here in our area. Mm-hmm. Which is causing a lot of other states and a lot of other cities to instill a mandatory quarantine. So if anybody that comes into town and goes back up, let's just say up north, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, those states, there's a 14-day mandatory quarantine. So those are the things that I have seen, and I think are contributing to the decline in showings. Right? Yeah. You agree with that?
I do agree. I think you and I started talking about showings declining. We may have touched on this on the last show. I think it may have been down around 20% at that time. And I think we're always careful at trying to make predictions. We want to give our opinions on where we think the market's heading, but we also want to remain as factual as we can. And the challenge with that, though, is when you remain factual, you're kind of like behind the trend, right? Because by the time it becomes a fact, then it's actually recorded as a fact, then it's old news that really doesn't tell paint a good picture on where we're heading. It just says where we were. So it is a fact, though, that we've seen a decrease in the amount of showings. And in our opinion, we thought that we might see a decrease in the number of new contracts written. Now, showings may not affect the closings that we have in the next 30 days because the closings that we will be reporting is a direct correlation of, say, about 45 days ago. Of how many contracts were written, and then 30 days prior to that, the showing activity dictated how many contracts were written, dictated how many properties sold, and now it's dictating how many properties have closed. So just last week, we saw a decrease in the number of showings. So what does that tell us? That tells us that logic says that we'll probably see a decrease in new contracts written and then a decrease in new pendings, which could lead to a decrease in sales. Now, again, I'm not alarmed. I'm not concerned that the market's crashing. We're just sharing with you all what is taking place in real time. So, Abe, showings are down. I think we both know that. Where do you see pendings right now? Because I think pendings, did you say, are you noticing that pendings are flattening out, going down, going up? What are you seeing in pendings?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing them flatten out. But before we get into that, let's look at, because we're already, June 9th, July 8th today?
Yeah.
So the final June numbers are out. I always wait like a week or so after the month is over because there's always some late entries into the data. So let me show people that number that we have right now. I think this is important to look at. So this right here is the condos pending for the month of June. So June numbers are out. So if you look for the month of June, you'll see this end right here. You'll see how it spiked up. I think you can see my cursor, right?
Yep, I sure can.
So you see for the month of June, this is when everything was closing down, and then all of a sudden pendings dropped like a rock. But you and I kept talking about, right? Because that's where we're different than other realtors in town. A lot of realtors are just reporting stuff after it happens. So you and I started talking about how even though the market was closed, buyers weren't really coming into town. We saw a big spike in online activity, right?
Yeah.
You remember that? So we saw people shopping online and saving a lot of property. So you and I were thinking, man, as soon as the floodgates open up, all of these people are going to come into town and buy. And that's where you see this big spike right here.
Yes.
So you'll see from here to there, look for the month of June alone, 47% increase over last year in number of pendings for the month of June, which is huge, right? And all of that was that pent up demand that was just bottled up, waiting for people to get in here. So it started going up in May, and then it went up in June. And then we'll see the same, if we look at single family homes, we'll see the same spike, 48% increase. So all of that was the stuff that, again, people were saving properties, waiting for the opportunity. As soon as the beaches opened up, it came in. And that's why we had that big spike. And as far as the number of pendings relative to actives. So like for the last 4 or 5 weeks, you and I just been blown away with the numbers, because every week the number goes up and up and up. The pendings kept going up at a crazy rate, right? And the reason I'm saying this is to lead up to what the next thing is, right? So now that most of these pent up buyers actually came in and put stuff on under contract, and they're all in the pipeline right now. Now we're seeing, if we're looking forward, we're seeing showings start to drop. We're seeing number of pendings start to drop. So now we're going to see all of a sudden the numbers are going to all of a sudden go down after all of these close and get out of the pipeline. So when we start looking at July numbers, we're going to see a difference again. So let me show you. Oh, well, first, do you have an opinion on this? So what do you think about it?
Well, I want to add something that's, I think, also very overlooked. Okay, so when I look at this chart, I'm saying, wow, all these properties sold. The one cool thing is that the properties that sold, a lot of these sellers actually got really good prices for their property, because the demand was so high, they were just able to sell it, for more money. But one of the things that we know is this, is that for all those properties that sold, those buyers, that's when they went under contract. But as real estate agents, we were working with those buyers all the way back since either January, February, March, but let's just say March. Okay. So, the key is that when people are trying to figure out, well, when's the best time for me to put it on the market? Some people would say, well, gosh, I should have put my property on the market in June. No, as a matter of fact, no, you should have had your property on the market in March. So I want you to understand, and this is the point, it's not about everyone should list their property. The point is that when you see June sales spiking, that's the sales that are taking place are really on the March listings. So when you're trying to figure out timing, what you got to understand is that we're talking to buyers months ahead of the time that they buy. So it's always important to make sure that you have your property listed on the market and positioned when the buyers are really doing their searching. So I would tend to believe, because people have to be quarantined when they go back to some of the northern states, I tend to believe we're going to see a slight little softening in new contracts and possibly sales. Okay. But I also know that the issues that we're dealing with COVID-19, there's a lot of swings, and there's a lot of emotional swings where people are like, okay, we're open back up. Let's go do our transactions now. Oh, I have to be quarantined. Let me stop right now and hit the pause button. They're going to hit the play button again. And the key is to make sure that if you're thinking about selling, you want to go ahead and be on the market before they hit the play button, so you could take advantage of that little blip or that little increase. So that was just something that crossed my mind I wanted to add.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. Now, you mentioned prices, right? So this is a history chart going all the way back to 2003 of what the median sales price of single family homes in Myrtle Beach right now. And look at where we are.
Yeah.
We're at $252,000 right now. That's the highest on recorded history that we have. So even back at the height of the market, back in June of 2006, the median sales price was $240, and now we're sitting at $252.
Yes. Yeah, phenomenal. You know, and the good thing, Abe, is like I think that this is a this is a healthier market than it was back in 2006, when there was a lot of crazy things going on and people were buying and flipping, and that investor market really pushed it to heights that were not sustainable. And right now, what we're dealing with is we're dealing with buyers that are really occupying these properties, right. You know, and that's really, you know, I would say it makes it a healthy market. Do I think the market could soften? Sure. But do I think the market's going to crash? No.
Absolutely. I mean, we're getting tons and tons of people from the Northeast moving down here now. We're getting calls all day long. But let's look at the inventory right now. So this is really interesting. I mean, we keep talking about inventory is low, and look at how it's been going down.
Yeah.
You know, month after month after month. And right now, single family homes, we're sitting at 3.9 months supply of inventory, down 29% from June of last year.
Yeah.
So inventory is really low. If we look at previously owned, we're at 3.6 months supply. This is resales on the market right now. So we got to go back all the way to, let's see, all the way back here. So August 2007, July of 2007 was a 3.5. So now we're sitting at 3.6. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good indicator, in my opinion, of how confident I feel in it, especially the residential real estate market in this town. As far as I don't foresee, I'd be really shocked if we saw a crash or anything like that. I know a lot of people are talking about, well, you know, we're at a bubble. I don't see anything that's showing a bubble, at least not in this market. There's just way too much demand still, and inventory is still way too low.
Yeah, you know, and I'll give a little bit of a you know, other look. I mean, if we look at the chart here, we actually do see that right before, when it was at this level, the market shot up. Okay, the supply, it actually shot up. And if we, like when we go and look and you see that huge mountain that's being climbed right there, yeah. That's actually when the market started going down. That was the bubble bursting, when supply started shooting up. So in 2006, we actually saw exactly what we're seeing right now, and there was a crash. Again, the difference is a lot of that inventory that we see that was dumped on the market back then, where people were buying 3 condos and 3 houses at a time, sight unseen. They weren't going to live in any of them. So when the market shifted, they dumped 4 properties on the market. And you take, you know, a lot of investors that are dumping properties on at that rate, then of course it's going to oversupply. So I think that's, you know, the main reason why we see that a good market is sustainable, is because the intentions of the buyers, they're not just flippers. They're either holding or living in these properties for longer term. Now, the builders are going to eventually catch up. And they're, you know, one thing that I know about real estate markets is the market doesn't stay undersupplied forever. Right. Because when there's low supply, then that means there's bigger opportunities for developers. So developers, believe me, are in the works to correct the supply problem. And what they'll end up doing is they'll produce new supply at similar prices of the resales, and that would be the softening effect. That's where we start to see a softening, is when the supply catches up. And the only way the supply is likely going to catch up is either demand goes down or builders, you know, increase. And I would say builders increase in supply is where we're heading right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a supply and demand, no question whatsoever. And as long as that inventory stays low, you're absolutely right. We're going to be fine. But if the developers start all of a sudden, you know, putting a bunch of homes on the market because they see opportunities there, then that could change.
Yes.
So leading up to, let's look at the actual numbers for this week.
Okay.
Look real quick.
While you're pulling that up, I did not note, or I wanted to say something and I didn't. On your comment on the states that are requiring 14-day quarantine if they come from Myrtle Beach, that is showing up. So the fact that we had a lower showings last week we anticipate we're going to have lower showings this week. And the reason will be is we have had numerous buyers cancel their plans because they were going to come down here. And some of them have said this, and I didn't know this, but I was just made aware of this today, is that apparently there are a lot of areas where the employers are saying, hey, look, if you go down to Myrtle Beach and you come back, the state's going to require that you have to be quarantined for 14 days. On top of that, we're not going to honor sick leave. That you're not going to be able to take sick leave, and be paid for that. So employers are saying, hey, look, if you're going to volunteer to go down to Myrtle Beach, and not only are you going to have to quarantine and be off of work, but we're not going to pay you for that time. So that's the conversation that buyers are calling us and saying, hey, look, I want to come down. I was really excited to be there and look at property, but this is what my employer says. These are what my state requirements are. And I just can't take off any more time. I can't miss that much time for work. I'm just going to have to wait till things settle down. So as you can see, we're probably going to go through a little bit of a slowdown, but then the question becomes, will that create another surge when that lifts? So to be determined, but I just want to throw that out for dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if it bottlenecks again, where people aren't getting down here and they go back to searching online a lot, which is why we're doing so much virtual showings right now, which is crucial to keep doing in this market.
Yes.
We could see a decline and then followed by another surge again.
Yes.
But here's the single family homes. So 43.65% of every single family home on the market right now is under contract pending. So again, these are all numbers that's been pending for a while, and they're closing daily. So now if you look at last week, it was at 44.05. So it actually went down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is less showings again. So we had a slowdown in showings last week, slowdown in the number of pendings, and new homes are just not hitting the market fast enough to match up with the pendings. So we actually saw it kind of flatten a little bit as opposed to the last 6 weeks. I mean, it went from 24% to 28 to 32. It's like every week there was a big jump, and where it peaked last week at 44%. So now this is the first time, and since the beach opened up, that we've actually saw a decline. in single family homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. What else you got? What about condos or resale? Resales
were at 40.96, almost identical to last week, which is 40.79. So again, that flattening. And then looking at new construction, we're at 47.4%. Last week it was 48.5%. So that went down a little bit as well.
Yeah. And I don't think we're listen, flattening. If we were to flatten at the current level that we are at it, we're considered an extreme seller's market.
Exactly.
So flattening, to you all that are listening, doesn't mean shifting. It doesn't mean nothing is actually shifted yet. And I don't know that it will. Nothing has shifted. We're just flattening, which is we're still extremely healthy. So I just want to make sure I make that distinction.
That's an excellent distinction, because typically in what it's been the last few years, and I've said this over and over, the normal pending is about 28% of single family homes. So to be flattening out at 47 or 44%, that's still a really strong number. If we can maintain, I don't know if we can maintain that number, but flattening at that level is still a super seller's market. 3.7 months supply of inventory is extremely low in this area.
Yes, that's right.
So this is the overall condo market. We're at 32.5%. Last week it was 32.44. So pretty much the same.
Okay.
Not much change in number of units out there. Again, that kind of flattened out with last week as well, but that's also a really strong number. To be at that 32%. And looking at the oceanfront condo, we're at 20.24. Last week was 21.25. So down one point from what it was last week as well.
Got it. So continue. So it's interesting. It's all across all product types.
Well, everything.
And which so which is really, a lot of times it doesn't happen that way. A lot of times one product type moves differently, which really indicates if all product types to me are kind of following the same trend lines, then it's really because of people not traveling, less people traveling in. It's not because one is more popular than another. It's just less people are coming in. So then it's all product types are being affected practically, around the same rates.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. And then the land, let's look at the land, 13.69%. Last week it was 13.43. So
Okay.
one actually up a tiny bit, but pretty much the same number.
Yeah. And if you have land right now, by the way, land is one of the solutions for an inventory problem. So as inventory is going down and down and down, and we're talking about inventory of homes that are already built, then we are starting to see, I'm starting to see get more calls for people that are saying, hey, maybe I'll just buy a piece of property and have somebody build me a home since I can't find what it is I'm looking for. So if you're sitting on land and you've been a little bit frustrated over the last couple of years that your land hasn't been moving, then you may want to give us a call, because there is definitely an opportunity to get it out there and expose it, while we're seeing that we're just at the beginning maybe of an increase in demand for those properties.
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity in land right now. So at 13.69% for years, that number's been 7 to 8% range.
Yeah.
So even if it flags at 13%, and I do agree with you, that's mainly a function of low housing inventory. So more people are just like, okay, if I can't find what I want, then I'll just buy a piece of land and build.
That's
so
right.
This is a great opportunity. If you have land, you've just been sitting on it, and what's really important, that you're never going to build.
Yeah.
Right? If you build on it at some point, hold on to it. There's still relatively low as far as prices, but if you know you're never going to build and you bought at the height of the market and you're just waiting for that opportunity to sell, this is that opportunity. This is the time to get in and get your cash back out of it and sell the land right now.
Yeah, that's good. All right, so good. Any other numbers? Is that it?
No, that's all the numbers.
Well, good. Hey, one thing I want to mention, Abe, and you and I had this conversation. So we do have a dilemma, right? We have a dilemma where we've got buyers that we're working hard to find them properties, and we've got situations like, we've got a buyer right now that needs a 3rd floor condo, 2-bedroom in any of the Myrtlewood properties. So that would be Magnolia Place, Magnolia North, Myrtle Point. Right, and there's just not a 2-bedroom 3rd floor with an elevator, let's say, that right now on the market. We've got buyers right now that are qualified to buy in Anderson Ocean Club and South Shore Villas, Avalon, a community. These are buyers that we have that we just, there's no, Press Week. You've got a buyer that's ready, willing, and able, and we can't find a property for them to even look at that they haven't already looked at. It's either a pool they don't want to pull, or the price isn't not in their range. The reason I bring this up is this: if any of you are listening and you have a piece of property that you don't want to list right now, for some reason you just say, I don't really want to list it, but I would sell it if there was a buyer. I just don't want to go through the process of listing. Please give Abe or I a call. And we'd love to talk with you about it. And just, if anything, we could share a little bit of information with our buyer to see if it qualifies, if it fits their needs. And if so, maybe we could marry the two of you together and we can do a transaction. And it fits the parameters and your goals, which is not having to list it right now and have to deal with this. So we find ourselves in that position where we're happy to represent sellers, and we're happy that we're getting them top prices. The most frustrating thing right now in our business is probably when you get this family or this investor or buyer that wants to come down and relocate to Myrtle Beach or buy a second home or a condo, and we keep having to tell them, hey, there's nothing on the market. They get a little frustrated, right? And we just want to do everything we can to fulfill our duties and help them, realize property ownership in our county. So if any of you have a property, you don't want to list it, but you at least want to, would entertain a buyer, give us a call. We'll have a conversation. Any last thing for you, Abe?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because we're seeing that in a lot of places across town, even Barefoot Resort. I mean, just in the last 60 days, between all three offices, we've sold over 30 units in Barefoot alone.
Yeah.
Right, so I've got a buyer right now looking for a unit, either first or second floor, and there's like hardly anything in there in all of Barefoot put together to find for them that's available. So you're not looking to list, okay? You don't want the headache of dealing with being on the market. At least get on our radar. At least call us and let us know that, hey, you're open to an offer. And then if we can just match you up with a buyer, save everybody a lot of time. And if the price makes sense to you, then we can put the deal together. If it doesn't make sense to you, it's okay. But at least reach out to us. We'll be more than glad to answer any questions, let you know what's happening in the market and what you can expect anyway. We're always available.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, there's our number right there at the bottom of the screen. Give us a call. And until next week, Abe, we'll continue to keep our finger on the pulse of the local real estate market and bring back another powerful set of data and episode for Myrtle Beach Real Estate TV. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you, Greg.
All right. Bye-bye.